What's going on, guys? Evan the Demon Souls enthusiast here, bringing another Demon Souls gameplay commentary. First commentary in a long time. So, as you know, this channel went through a lot of periods of inactivity / changes, and just overall things were sort of not focused on the Soul series like they had been for so long. The EgoXeno YouTube has actually been through a lot of transitions over the years of its existence, but before we get into that, I do want to do a quick rundown of what you can expect in this commentary so that the people tuning in can know what they're going to get into and what can they expect. So I have about an hour and 10 minutes-ish in this commentary, so I want to take probably the first 5 to 10 minutes of that and talk about where this channel is, where it was, what happened to the Demon Souls series, and what things are going to be uploaded, things like things. Basically just give you guys an update. It's kind of customary for me to update on this series of games I'm playing and things like that so people can know what kind of uploads to expect. So next I'll talk a little bit about some other things I've observed. I pretty much am actually committed to playing all of Demon Souls this time because I've already recorded gameplay all the way through, new game. I just have to do a couple World Tendency events and things like that. So I've got all the footage stock archived. I just need to put commentary over it. So this time, it's not going to become sort of a defunct, abandoned series. I'm actually going to finish it and load down this playlist. And the reason I never deleted the Demon Souls playlist from my channel was I knew I would come back to it, and I promised the people that requested it that I would come back to it. Surprisingly, Demon Souls is one of the most requested games on this channel. The Soul series in general was what really grew this channel, and I kind of walked away from it just because I was burned out and bored with the game. So all of Demon Souls will be going up in this channel, though I already have the footage archived. Despite recording, all the gameplay in just like 3 sessions, because I just marathoned it over a 3-day weekend, put a lot of effort into getting this series done. I actually took a day off work and just put a lot of weekends in getting it done and getting the trophies. So I almost have all the trophies now, just have to farm some blade stones and stuff like that. So really excited. I'm doing this in preparation for Dark Souls 2, which will be a big part of this YouTube channel. It's something I've been waiting for a long time. As much as I love Dark Souls, it's just kind of done with the game. I've done everything. I had all the trophies. I had all the trophies on PlayStation 3, 360, and most of the trophies on PC. And I just couldn't find the motivation to play it anymore. I was burned out with the PvP, so just needed a break from the Soul series, and that's how Dota went in. Dota's going to continue. I love the game of Dota. I've got a lot of time invested in Dota. I've got hundreds and hundreds of games in Dota, which translates to hours upon hours of gameplay. So Dota's not going anywhere. It's going to be a mainstay of this channel, but I'm definitely going to try to start at least doing an upload. My internet connection speed is really bad right now. As always, I have internet problems because I work for the university system, so sometimes I have a really stable download speed. In general, my download speed is never the problem, it's my upload speed. It takes me roughly 24 hours to upload a gameplay commentary, so it's better now. Instead of like playing the game and then uploading it the same day, if I sort of record it, just have a lot of commentaries backed up, so I can just start uploading day after day after day, which is what I do with Dota. I get probably 30 games on a hard drive, and then I just queue up 30 uploads, and they just take care of themselves, or at least that's the method I'm planning on. So that's kind of where the uploads are coming on this channel, and what's going to happen with Demon Souls. Demon Souls is probably going to be like a several times a week thing, twice a week until I'm through this series. It'll probably take me 2 weeks, and then all of the Demon Souls will be up on the channel, and then I'll start taking request vids again. I'll try to do some Demon Souls PvP, which I never got into, so the servers aren't very full right now. Demon Souls is a older game, it's the first installment of the Soul series, so a great legacy there, great players are still playing, but I didn't really like PvP in this game. It took the quote-unquote flasking problem of Dark Souls and took it to a new extreme. But Dark Souls 2 has promised to address the PvP in a much larger way than Demon Souls or Dark Souls did. And what is nice about Demon Souls is they left the servers up for all this time, so I am grateful for that. But after playing through this game again, I've noticed a lot of things I didn't notice the first time through. One is I love this game. I loved it the first time I played through it, but I never got into it. But I really do love this game. I don't really like the consumables of grass and the mana system and stuff, and I'll talk a little bit about all of that as I go. But all in all, this game just feels like it was the predecessor to Dark Souls. There's a lot of differences in the design, but they're all nuanced. It's a very similar gaming experience. It's just Dark Souls is admittedly more polished than Demon Souls. It doesn't necessarily make one more than the other, but in terms of an experience, one is more developed and more thought out than the other, I think. there are problems with both games in my opinion. Neither game is perfect, but both games are at least, you know, A-grade titles to me. And I don't mean AAA blockbuster titles. I mean A as in like, you know, F to A scale, like a, you know, 4.0 type of game. I couldn't ask for anything else out of these games. I mean, a lot of it's just personal preference, but some things I have noticed about playing through this is some of the things that kept me from going back through it, and I'll itemize those here in a minute. But
if not, have you...
One thing that's different about these two games is Demon's Souls has no poise in PvP or PvE. So, you know, for those of you not familiar with Dark Souls, poise is an armor stat that basically is like hyper armor from a fighting game. If your poise is high enough versus the power of an attack, you get hit and you don't get stunned. You can just keep going. Demon's Souls has no such thing. So if you're hit by a strong enemy attack or a strong weapon in PvP, you're going to get staggered. So breaking stun lock is very important in this game, which is done by toggling your weapon. Don't know why that happens, it just does. It's built into the game. So that's definitely something to think about. Another difference between Demon's Souls and Dark Souls is the way character builds and designs work. Of course, in Dark Souls, it's pretty rare to encounter like a pure mage. It's kind of just, you know, I have dark magic, I have dark beads and pursuers, or homing crystal soul mass, or soul arrows, and crystal magic weapon and weapon buffs and things like that. And that's all present in Demon's Souls as well. But in Demon's Souls, you actually have a blue bar which represents your MP, which is restorable through spice, which works basically just like a flask did in Dark Souls. So you can actually make pure caster builds. You just go buy a bunch of spice and then you battle that way. Oh, and I should take an aside to mention, this is not the same character you saw when I first uploaded my Demon's Souls stuff. I kind of walked away from that character because I didn't like where she was going. So Electra follows sort of a different build. Electra is a faith. Faith is my favorite stat to invest in Demon's Souls or Dark Souls. This is a faith warrior. I've done faith characters in the past on Demon's Souls, but I felt like revisiting what I know I like. That way I would stick to the series and not sort of bail out on you guys like I did in the past, which I really felt bad about. So anyway, I think that the importance of flasking and grassing, you know, is huge in the Souls games, knowing when to heal and how to heal. But definitely in Demon's Souls, healing is easier depending on if A, you're duping items, or B, you're willing to farm souls, because flasks don't cost you anything, they're just renewed at bonfires. Demon's Souls has no bonfire system. Actually, the game is broken up into worlds. It's not one continuous world like in Dark Souls. In Demon's Souls, you teleport to different zones, as you've seen in other parts of these videos and other people playing Demon's Souls. And there are no like checkpoints within these zones. It's just the whole zone is the whole area, and your checkpoint sort of is the nexus, which is your headquarters here. So everything comes out of the nexus, which there's no problem with that system at all, so much as I'm just pointing out that you don't save mid-battle, so you don't replenish flasks or anything like that. Basically, you come in with as many greens as you have, which is normally, you know, 99 of a particular type if you're coming prepared, and you just play through the level and you replenish your greens. So if you're cheating, it's no big deal. If you're not cheating, which I typically don't, it does add a lot to the farming aspect of this game. Demon's Souls has more farming than Dark Souls, both for rare stones for upgrades and for just souls in general. I mean, souls is of course the only currency in the Soul series, and I think farming souls plays a bigger part in Demon's Souls than in Dark Souls. Now, admittedly, I'm a little hard on myself, so when I'm playing through this, I'm ignoring obvious dupe methodologies that alleviate this problem. I am not leveling up my character hardly at all. I was in a situation where I could only level up vitality. I couldn't level up any other stats, which is part of the character design, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but it's one of the biggest elements of this game that I didn't like. I mean, admittedly, it's me taking advantage of an exploit, but we'll get to that. There's a lot to get through, and I don't remember what I've covered in other commentary, so there might be some revisits, some things, but that's fine, since I haven't played Demon's Souls in so long. A refresher is probably more of a good thing than a bad thing. So, you know, I've already talked about poise and how that really affects PvE and PvP, where evasion and dodging is just paramount. Unlimited healing, so as long as you can get away to heal, you can pretty much fight indefinitely or until you run out of greens, which should never happen to you unless you came ill-prepared. Greens are not rare, by the way. You can find grass, where it's not greens, it's grass, the Resident Evil problems. You can find grass fairly easily, both from drops of enemies and just by farming souls and buying it, so it's no problem. The better of a player you are, the less you'll have to grass, although to a point,
After all, go.
I feel like blowing grass is just part of life. Okay, another big thing about this, and I know I talked about this before, is the world tendency from quote-unquote pure white to pure black and everything in between. It affects gameplay in subtle but meaningful ways. There are certain events that only occur in a pure white world, and certain events only occur in a pure black world. And certain actions you take during the game, mostly through online play, will make the world more dark or more light. Basically, things are harder when the world is more dark, but when it's more dark, you get more souls and better item drops. When it's more white, it's easier. This is done through weaker enemies. Furthermore, done through superior, you get more HP, things like that. You'll also see me right now in the gameplay, I'm warping to World 4-1. I'm going to World 4-1 because this is pretty much the zone where you go to get a starting character geared up. There's better ways to fight these skeletons than how I'm doing it. You can go get a Blessed Mace. Of course, skeletons are with the blunt, and a mace is a blunt weapon. And +1 Blessed Mace would pretty much murder these skeletons, but I felt like I had the skill set and the abilities to get through this area and get to the Crescent Falchion, which is basically the goal of coming here, is to get an early game powerful weapon. Crescent Falchion, which one? In this game, when you upgrade weapons, they'll scale to a certain stat. That's kind of how upgrades work. So, not that unlike Dark Souls in that you build character builds that based on weapon scaling. Well, in this game, the upgrade paths are tied to scaling. So some are tied to faith, some are tied to dex, some are tied to strength. Crescent is tied to magic. So the greater your magic, the better your spells would be. And there's definitely Crescent weapon builds. I'm playing a faith build. But either way, acquiring a Crescent Falchion, which is a really good weapon for PvE because it swings fast and has a pretty good arc. Even getting a weapon that's fully upgraded to a +1 still represents all the damage mods up to +1. So definitely way better than anything else you have early in the game. Definitely better than a Blessed Mace at this stage of the game. So an awesome thing to get, and not too hard to reach either once you kind of get the hang of battling through the skeletons. So that's kind of your early game exploit in Demon Souls, is you can get access to a lot of really useful equipment early, just like all the other Souls games. Just once you know your way around the areas, things get a lot easier. And thankfully I still remember enough about this game to find useful items. But see, skeletons are a big challenge because there is no poise and no way to get poise. When they hit me with that roll, it's like a guaranteed stagger. It actually makes a big difference. But anyway, so you'll see me acquire numerous items. Some of the footage got cut out in this zone. Nothing too meaningful though. You'll see me get the Crescent Falchion and likely the Ring of Regeneration, which is the two big things you want here. And maybe the Adjudicator Shield if you're into that kind of thing. But all those items basically grant passive regen. The Crescent Falchion is just a damaging weapon that gives you a very, very minimal passive MP regen, which doesn't do much for this character. The only miracle I have is Heal, which basically saves you early game grasses, but it's not significant. So the mana regen, pretty much worthless, but I just want it for the damage. And so the Crescent Falchion is right up ahead here, plus this scary black skeleton guy. The easy way to deal with him is just to backstab him to death because he leaves himself open a lot. Of course, I don't know what happened there. I was like, oh, I'll just block him and then run past him because he's pretty slow on the uptake. So if you just dodge his first attack, you can run right past him and grab the item off the cliff. And that's a Crescent Falchion. And of course, this is where some footage got lost. I don't know what happened. One of my recordings got corrupted. And of course, in a Souls game, you can't really go back and undo to re-record. So you just have to bear with me on that. We missed me acquiring a lot of meaningful items, so I do regret that, but we'll just have to go forward with the series. I'm not going to start another character just to fill in those gaps. So you'll see me trading some items with Sparkly the Crow here to get some really valuable items. I should note, this playthrough isn't going to itemize everything you should do in the Soul series and be like a true walkthrough. The game is so old that most of the people playing aren't going to be interested in that. This is more of an overview of my thoughts on the game as I play, and the Souls series in general, than it is like here's how you get through Demon Souls. Although admittedly, if you mimic the actions taken in these videos, or you can definitely learn something from them if you're struggling with this game. I consider Demon Souls to be harder than Dark Souls by a large margin, but that's just my take on it. I've had a lot of people tell me the opposite, so who knows. I try to edit out the loading screens wherever I can. It's imperfect editing, but I didn't think it was important to edit it down to the last second. So, finishing up my thoughts on the world tendency system, it basically sucks. It's fairly simple, but it just creates a very restrictive way for you to play, particularly when you're trying to go for trophies and stuff like that. Basically, the most common ways you affect world tendency if you're offline is if you're in human form, because there's soul form and body form, basically that's like your humanity of Dark Souls. Only as in humanity, you stacked it and you became undead versus human. In Demon Souls, it's just soul versus human form. And human form has more HP, but you take more damage. I consider human form to be a tad stronger than soul form, but dying in human form will affect your world tendency, whereas dying in soul form does not affect your world tendency. What this translates to is if you're trying to do world tendency events, which most players are on many of their characters, you're basically going to wind up playing in soul form if you're sane and rational, because the game is hard enough that even if you're very good at it, you know, simple mistakes can cost you lives, and Demon Souls actually has a fair bit of precision walking and, you know, pitfalls and things like that can kill you, basically cheap shots. I feel like Demon Souls compared to Dark Souls in general actually has more cheap shots and more enemies that just kind of just poop on you because they can, which isn't a huge deal. I mean, Dark Souls of course has the infamous white archers and some other things that are just pretty poorly done, but I must admit I think Demon Souls has more poorly done things than Dark Souls.
Nothing suits you.
I think Demon Souls has more exciting boss fights. I'll except you being granted to Dark Souls, having Ornstein, who is easily the best boss of any Soul series in my opinion. Probably even dating back to the Kingsfield series, he's probably my favorite boss with the most epic theme and just great atmosphere. Demon Souls and Dark Souls both have a fantastic atmosphere. I've never decided if I enjoy the continuous world of Dark Souls or the broken world of Demon Souls. I feel like in Demon Souls having the like broken world thing, it allowed them to have more unique areas and variants, like geographically, whereas in Dark Souls, not to say that there weren't really unique areas, it just, Demon Souls just felt like I was in a huge different region, like geographically, like climates were different, and just the world felt so much more varied and colorful, which was fine. I mean, Dark Souls did not lack a variety, I just think Demon Souls had more variety, so I enjoyed that. And wrapping up the world tendency discussion, I know I keep leaving it and coming back to it, but in synopsis, to get pure white world tendency, every time you kill a boss or you kill a black phantom, the world gets more pure, bringing you closer to pure white. And there's certain items you can acquire only in pure white, and certain events you can do in pure black is the opposite. So in killing certain NPCs will make the world more black, dying in human form will make the world more black, and certain one-time events will make the world more black, and these are all published online, which is how I did it, of course. I just referenced the online journals and what I remembered, but every time you kill a boss, you'll of course return to human form. Yep. So if you're trying to keep the world at a, you know, a neutral stance, which neutral's the worst, by the way, there's no advantage to neutral, you basically would, every time that you killed a boss and return to your body forms, you automatically get your body form back when you kill a boss. You would essentially go kill yourself the same way, and the world tendency would go up 1. +3 is pure white, -3 is pure black, and 0 is neutral. So killing a boss is +1. If you die in human form, you go back to 0. If you haven't killed, you know, if you haven't raised it, you die, you go to -1. And it caps out at -3 and +3 respectively. So there are items that restore your humanity. They're called Stones of Ephemeral Eyes. They're common throughout the game. Most players dupe them if they need more. They're also farmable. They're a pretty available resource, so you never feel like you should waste them. So essentially, if you kill enough bosses in an area and never die in human form, the world will go pure white. You can do the pure white events, and then you can just go kill yourself a bunch of times with Stones of Ephemeral Eyes. Turn human, go to an area, die. Turn human, go to an area, die. And you do that enough times to your -3. And then you can do all the pure white, pure black events, rather. That's the simplest way to do it. There are little shortcuts you can do to save yourself a little bit of time and save yourself Stones of Ephemeral Eyes, but none of them are mandatory. That's just kind of a overview of how the system works, and if you ever get stuck, you can correct it with Stones of Ephemeral Eyes, essentially. It's actually, in my opinion, better to go pure black first. It's quicker. The known methodology, I did not observe it in this playthrough, but a great methodology if you're concerned about world tendency is basically take the world to pure black, do your pure black world events, which will cause a special demon called a primeval demon to appear, which you'll see later in this series. And killing it will give you pretty much 75% white right off its death. So if you do that, then you go kill a boss in the zone, like save one boss in the zone. So what I like to do on my old characters was save one boss at the end, then intentionally bring the world to pure black for better drops and more souls, then essentially go and kill the boss, and kill the primeval demon, and voila, move up to pure white. You've already done pure black. It's So that'll leave you a world in pure white. Of course, the type of world tendency you're in does not change from
Look at me.
like New Game to New Game
Again,
Plus. So if
clear
you
out
leave
the
the world in pure
soldiers
white
at
in
the
New
far
Game,
end,
New Game
the
Plus will
Lord's
still be
path,
pure white, and vice
just
versa
found
for pure
yonder,
black.
has degenerated
As
into
you
a
get throughout the
feeding ground
game,
for flying
into future
dragons.
playthroughs, and you've done all your world tendency events, I tend to leave the world in pure black for better drops and more challenge and more fun. But pure white's certainly an option too, particularly depending on your tendency to PvP, because world tendency could affect PvP in some large ways, but we don't really itemize those right now, particularly not because I understand how it works, but I don't have a lot of personal experience reporting the kind of difference it makes by first-hand experience. So that's some big differences. A lot of those kind of kept me from coming back to this game. I found the world tendency system to be obnoxious. I've talked about that in other playthroughs. I found grasses to be obnoxious. And sometimes it's the little things that can really take away from the experience in a game, particularly when I had Dark Souls available to me. I just really preferred Dark Souls, so I played it. But now that I've had time to rest from the Soul series and come back to this, I have a lot more appreciation for it. I'll likely be spending more time with this game than just makes it onto YouTube. Sometimes I like to just kind of play the Soul series for my own enjoyment. I like to upload them because I think you guys like to see them, but sometimes I just want to play too, you know, and only so many hours in a day, particularly when you work a job and have a life and, you know, an adult, probably be a problem. So, let's talk a little bit about the magic system, because I think that's really relevant to the experience, because, so magic, in my opinion, in Dark Souls, it's very hard to make it your primary form of attack. Not impossible, but because you had a limited cast of all spells, and you had to replay through the game to get additional stacks of spells, which, by the way, in my opinion, is the most obnoxious part of Dark Souls. Is so, like, if I want multiple stacks of, say, you know, Soul Spear, I have to play through the game over and over and get them. And it's just, it's lame. If I have it once, let me equip it as many times as I have attunement slots. I mean, sure, it would make the game a lot easier in a lot of respects. And furthermore, I mean, it would have even more people running around with Wrath of Gods, which I know the community despises, but I like to use Wrath of Gods, and if I, you know, a player like me is willing to play through Dark Souls 5 times to get my 5 stacks of Wrath of Gods, making it more inconvenient for me isn't going to stop me from doing it. So it's just something to think about on the magic system. Whereas in Demon Souls, you have unlimited casts, provided you have the MP to cast it, which is that blue bar. So like I said before, you know, Dark Souls became strategic when to use magic, when to save magic, you know, play through the game a bunch of times, get a bunch of stacks of spells. Demon Souls was learn the spell, basically by killing bosses or by buying it from a vendor, and then essentially keeping your MP up through the spamming of grass. Demon Souls had a lot of spamming of consumables, which I was not a huge fan of. Particularly not because very, very easy dupe methods exist for Demon Souls. It's easier to dupe in Demon Souls than on Dark Souls, so pretty much everyone always had, you know, whereas on Dark Souls everyone had the unlimited divine blessings, well, Demon Souls has the same thing. The difference is Demon Souls PvP is better suited to dealing with Dark Moon Grass, and Dark Souls PvP was suited to dealing with divine blessings. That's another discussion entirely, and one we don't really want to get into right now. I'm just saying on Demon Souls it's very possible to do a pure mage build, because you can cast as much as you need to, providing you're willing to farm / buy the spice and pop the spice. There's items that give you natural mana regen, but they're very inconvenient. And there's a lot of people online that advocates builds that utilize all the MP regeneration items in the game, which can get you up to a pretty high, it's like almost 15 MP regeneration per second, which is significant admittedly, and there's some degenerate strategies you can do with that involving hyper mode, which I'll probably explain in another video, how hyper mode works and what hyper mode is. But essentially, it's easier for most casters just to stockpile grass, because you can get them very early in the game, and use those grasses to just make your pure caster. But when you're a person like me, and for some reason I don't like to use my consumables, even though I know they're unlimited, I'm just that guy, I guess. It's some sort of mental block. Magic just doesn't work real well for me on this game as a pure caster, so I definitely wind up with, like, mostly melee builds or melee caster builds. By the way, I love the Wrath of Gods on this game. This is what, in my opinion, what the Wrath of Gods on Dark Souls should have been. You'll see it in future installments, not in this video, but essentially Wrath of Gods in this game is an extremely long channel spell that 360 AoEs in a huge area around you and just plows everything around you for a ton of damage. It's great, it takes a lot of skill to use, and it's not like the panic spell like it was in Dark Souls, where Wrath of God's kind of got a bad name in Dark Souls because people just roll around chasing you, just spamming it like, you know, wrath, until you died. That's frustrating for everyone, especially if you haven't learned to roll through it. But in this game, it was more of like an all-in kind of strategy, or it just wasn't like a mainstay attack. It was more of like a support skill. And that's how I really like the Wrath of the Gods to be sort of the epitome of support miracles, if you will. This game separates magic into two categories. One is miracles and one is magic, and they're governed by two different stats. So some builds have both faith and magic, some have one or the other. This build, for example, will only have faith stuff. So faith in this game has basically no offensive options. There's no shockwave or anything like that, whereas Dark Souls, there's, you know, good stuff for knockback and stuff like that. That doesn't exist in this game. Essentially, you're just, you know, there's no mid-force or anything like that. Your only offensive one is Wrath of the Gods. Everything else you have is heals, recalls, stuff like that. Really useful utility stuff, but that's about it. I should mention that on this game, if you really want to, if you want to abuse it, Demon's Souls left you a lot of options to abuse it more than Dark Souls. I think that if you abuse Demon's Souls in every way you can, and I'm not going to itemize all those here, but, you know, some of them is like hyper mode magic, walking firestorm glitch, warding, spamming warding versus bosses. Warding, for reference, is a spell that basically makes you immune to physical damage. You know, all these methods will make Demon's Souls a very easy game if you want it to be. But if you're playing Demon's Souls, I think, as intended, at least not knowing all the little tricks and methods to ease the difficulty of the game, I think Demon's Souls is much harder. Dark Souls is just much harder to abuse. Not to say Dark Souls is not abusable. So, definitely a very different magic system. Magic plays a much larger part in PvP in this game than it did in Dark Souls. Pure casters do show up in PvP. I think they're gimped compared to non-pure casters, but they're still around, and they still... Good mages in PvP are very dangerous and powerful. So, just something to think about. The crystal lizards work differently in this game. I think I've talked about this before, but I'm going to just do a quick run by. So, both games have, like, you know, the crystal lizards that spawn in. You can kill them and get, you know, rare stones and stuff to upgrade your equipment, which is well and good, no problem. But in this game, if you miss them, they're gone. They don't respawn. You get one crystal lizard spawn per boss killed in the area, plus one that naturally occurs, which is not unlike Dark Souls. It's just in Dark Souls, if you miss the crystal gecko, crystal lizard, crystal gecko, you can basically save load your game, it'll reappear, and you can get all your crystal lizards that way. Not the case in Demon's Souls. If you miss it and save your game, he's gone forever. So, definitely an issue. Also, the acquisition of certain stones and trophies and things like that in this game was abysmal. I mean, you know, I'm kind of a stickler for, I think players shouldn't utilize dupes or things like that. I think people should just deal with the rarity of items. But I must acknowledge, in the world of Demon's Souls, unlocking all your trophies, if you weren't duping, was just a nightmare. I never succeeded in doing so. I wasn't that into the Souls series back then. It wasn't going up on YouTube. It just didn't have the same personal connection for me then that it does now. So nowadays, you know, if this game had just been released, I probably would have got all the trophies legitimately. But no, it's just me. This guy here, I'm fighting. I have the wrong weapon. My Crescent Falchion. A lot of its damage comes from magic, and the Gurmur guy there, it's pretty decent magic resistance, but killing him nets you a lot of early game souls. So if you have the right equipment, he's a great guy to farm early game to get your souls up if you're into that kind of thing. I don't farm souls much anymore on any of the Souls series because I compensate by having basically the skill to overplay low levels, which is why I was able to get through this entire playthrough of Demon's Souls at basically base level and only using stuff that I could equip at my natural point. The in-game weapons on these characters works very differently, whereas, you know, say Dark Souls, you never really maxed a stat, hardly ever, unless you're doing some sort of very specific kind of like fringe build, homebrew kind of thing, which was fun. You know, I've been there, but typically, honestly, not a great idea because the returns were so diminishing. On this game, that is not the case. Most builds up one of their stats anywhere from 50 to 100, all the way up to 99. Like, I remember Golden Age builds, and Golden Age, of course, refers to when this game was newly released and the PvP was brimming, and you're getting invaded all the time, and it wasn't so like sort of lonely on the servers as it is today. Admittedly, 99 strength or 99 strength quote unquote crushing builds or 99 strength sharp builds, dexterity stuff like that. Like that was very common. There was a huge emphasis on min-maxing your damage, which is having the highest possible minimum maximum damage, and that's what PvP basically became defined by. Not so much by diminishing returns, but by just going for the absolute most damage you could on a weapon. So, like a Golden Age build on Dark Souls might be, and these builds still exist, they're still popular, it's just people are more willing to spread out their stats. So, like Golden Age dexterity build essentially would be 99 dexterity, 40 endurance, 50 vitality, and if there's any leftover points, you do sort of a stat spread into other support magics. There were a couple breakpoints that all characters met. You had to have 100 MP on any character, basically, if you wanted to not be gimped, which was to cast Second Chance. I'll elaborate on that miracle a little bit later. But basically, all players got around, I think it's 18 faith. I don't have the breakpoints memorized like I did in Dark Souls, but I think around 18 faith, you had enough faith to cast Second Chance. And then around 15 MP, you had enough to cast, to actually cast the spell. And Second Chance basically is exactly that. If you die, you're immediately revived right where you were as if you hadn't died, but you have half your life, or a percentage of your life, rather. So every build had Second Chance for both PvP and PvE because it was just so outrageously powerful you couldn't skip it on any build. It just wasn't a good idea. And most builds would wind up having warding in some attunement slots as well, so some stuff to think about. Of course, weapon buffing in this game worked way differently too, whereas in Dark Souls, unless someone is glitching from limited spells, or cheating rather, basically, you can buff as much as you want, and buffing over and over is just sort of expected if you have a buff build. There are certain builds on Demon Souls specifically designed to be buffed. Sort of the most emphasis buff build is either the, it's kind of a toss-up between like buffing with Curse Weapon, which I'll elaborate on later, or buffing Blue Blood Sword with Light Weapon, Magic Weapon. I'll elaborate on all this later. For those who haven't played Demon Souls, I know some of this might seem like almost like a foreign language, but you can always consult wikis if you get too confused, and I'll try to be as thorough and specific as I can, but I guess if you've never played Demon Souls, some of this stuff may not be, that great of information for you, and I apologize for that. So, bleed was way less of a factor in this game. It just isn't. Bleed is still great for PvE, but of course in Dark Souls, bleed is, once the bleed triggers, you just lose a buttload of life and that's it. On this game, basically, and you'll see me, I just got the Magic Sword Mikado. That's because it's in pure White World tendency right now. And thus, being in pure White World tendency gives me the opportunity to get that sword. If you're not in pure White World tendency, the sword is up on that the body is up on that incline right there. Thus, you cannot get to it. And you have to get pure White World tendency, then it magically falls to the ground for you. One thing I will observe in this playthrough, and not about the game itself, but rather what's going on right now, is you'll see that I'm in 4-1, or 4-2 rather. This is a great early world to come to because you get spell vendors here. When you start the game, not all the available NPCs are in the Nexus. Just like in Dark Souls, some of the advanced spellcasting teachers and stuff like that have to be rescued from the world and brought back into the Nexus. In Dark Souls, to a point, you have to follow a specific order. Like, you're not going to Anor Londo until you've rang both bells. It's just not happening. And stuff like that. On Dark Souls, very, very few zones are restricted to the player, allowing you to get all your spell vendors at the start of the game if you have the skill to go to the more dangerous areas of the game and collect them. So you'll see I just rescued Saint Urbane from the big hole that Patches pushed us into. He is the miracle vendor for high-level faith stuff and miracles, so he's a good guy to rescue. Nice. In 3-1, which will probably be in the next upload, you'll see me rescue the high-level spell vendor. So, just some things to think about. Some differences in how you should approach the games and things that'll make life easier / harder. Bows are definitely better in Demon Souls. No better in PvP than they were in Dark Souls, but in Demon Souls, bows, I mean, they can basically, you can beat the whole single player with a bow fairly easily. In fact, I would argue that a bow and a sword combination, or a bow and a good melee weapon, is probably the easiest way to get through
bless your good now.
Demon Souls. Definitely because pulling aggro on this game is a big deal, because if you get a lot of enemies that decide they're going to mob you, it's a legitimate problem, because without poise, if multiple guys start whacking on you, you may never get the chance to strike back. And if you're not like rocking second chance, that could be just a death. Back to the next to go try to get your blood stain. One thing that was really nerve-wracking about this playthrough was, since I wasn't leveling, I didn't really have any good places to put out my souls, because levels are your biggest expense in souls. I winded up with, oh my gosh, I think like 400,000 souls at one point, and I wound up dying and losing all of them, but it really didn't matter, because this was more of a playthrough for the upload than a playthrough for making a productive character. This game's kind of over the hill. I love it, it's still worth playing, but you're not going to find enough PvP action to make this, in my opinion, like a worthy investment. Probably just better to wait till Dark Souls 2. Now, on the flip side of that, if you've never played through Demon Souls, it was free on PSN for a while, and it's very cheap at like your GameStop or your online retailers. So, if you're a Souls fan, this game has a lot to offer. It's definitely a game I've come to love. It's aged well in my mind. I don't think it aged well against Dark Souls, but Dark Souls definitely took a lot of inspiration from it. So, it's definitely something to consider if you're looking for something to play that's on the cheap. Particularly if you're just like me, you just cannot wait for Dark Souls 2. You need to get your soul fix in, but you're just burned out on Dark Souls 1. And throw in Demon Souls, you probably have a better time than you really expect. So, a lot of these introductory videos in the start of the series are me running around finding the gear I need in these worlds and getting set up. So, if anyone wants to share with me how they gear their starting characters in Demon Souls, I'd love to hear it, because I do think there's a lot of variance in how people approach this game. Which, one of my favorite things about Demon Souls is the different ways people approached how they played it. And particularly because I think the boss battles in this game were typically more challenging. I think the bosses generally would quote-unquote cheap shot you more. And you'll see that as I play, I think. You'll see that I get cheap shotted by some bosses, and not complaining, that's just all part of the experience. I'm just saying it's different. It's functionally different. One thing I want to kind of wrap up my little introductory on is farming for trophies in this game sucks, because they made some of the most useless weapon upgrades among the rarest. Now, of course, in this game, pure Bladestone is admittedly the worst. I mean, the worst offender of just outrageously hard to farm. Only several enemies in the game will drop a pure Bladestone, and the drop is extremely low. So getting a pure Bladestone can be rough, and depending on the build you're on, you might actually need 2 pure Bladestones. So before the age of duping and people muling items to you, oh my lord, you could be farming for literally like 24 hours game time if you're unlucky trying to get, 2 of your, pure Bladestones to upgrade your katanas to sharp. Bladestone governs the sharp attribute, and sharp scales off dexterity, basically. So, and since katanas are fundamentally dexterity weapons, and dual wielding in Demon Souls is far more viable than it was in Dark Souls. I mean, dual wielding in this game with 2 katanas is one of the best, if not the best, all-around PvP build, which is something to think about if you get into this game. But just understand, if you don't have a buddy that's willing to help you out, and you refuse to dupe, you're going to wind up playing for a long, long time. Now, I must confess, I did dupe to get trophies on this game, and I do not regret it. Beyond the Bladestone, which is one of the best items in the game, depending on your character build, there's a lot of strange weapon upgrade paths, like Sucker Stone, which gives you Life Leech, or Mercury, which gives you poison on your weapon. All cool ideas, but fundamentally pretty useless. So, and all the drops for there's Marrow Stone and things like that. There's all sorts of little paths, upgrade paths, that are beyond useless. And the part about that that's maddening is, pretty much there's trophies, like, obtain the best upgrade by every path in the game. And since some paths are so outrageously hard to farm, you're basically farming an item for a trophy, because there's absolutely no way that the item's ever going to be useful to you. It's just kind of the way the game. Cloudstone is the same way. It's really monotonous, it's really unfun, and I know it's a trophy, but I think that if you're a big Souls fan, getting all the trophies has priority to a lot of players. And since the Souls game emphasizes, this is not the kind of game where power leveling gets you very far. It's more about learning the game, learning the skill, That's why I don't advise players to really go and farm for a long time in any of the Souls series. You're better off just trying the fights, learning how to fight. Like, don't level your skills. Don't spend time leveling the preparation unless you need something very specific, like a couple more endurance to be able to do your fast run versus the boss, or you need a couple more points in stats in order to wield the correct sort of shield you want. I can totally respect all of that, but otherwise it's just not, it's not a good strategy. And I think that putting trophies in the game that aren't based on skill at all, but rather based on your patience and willingness to farm completely useless items is just not a good design choice. They did away with it in Dark Souls. There wasn't very much here to farm for in Dark Souls at all. Basically, I spent most of my time farming for spell stacks, which I'm hoping in Dark Souls 2 they find a new, better way to do magic. I'd like to see some sort of cross between Demon Souls and Dark Souls. Because I think both have a lot to learn from the other. I think in Demon Souls you get into this habit of just, let's just spam consumables, and that'll be cool, that'll be that. I almost hope in Dark Souls 2, if I had my way, I would consider doing like a sort of a crossbreed of the two methodologies, which say you don't have spell stacks so much as, but you have the flask system returns. You have a number of flasks for MP, so once you run out of MP, like, you're just done. I kind of like that, where when you go into battles, you only have a set amount of resources, and you have to make the most of them, because it encourages resource management, which I think is a great part of the Souls series, particularly Dark Souls, where resource management is huge, flash management, not wasting your flasks. Really good idea. So that would be my choice. Basically, have flasks again, or something like empty flasks. I have no idea how it will actually turn out. Hopefully I get into the beta. But I realize that everybody wants to do that beta that's a Souls fan. So hopefully I get lucky, and hopefully you guys watching get lucky, and someone can tell me a little bit about it, or I can tell you guys a little bit about it. But basically I'm hoping that they'll find a good way to balance casting, because I think that in an action RPG, having a quote-unquote, like, mostly, if not pure caster build is a fundamental character archetype that should be available to players. I doubt I would even partake in it very often, but I think I should have the option. If nothing else, just to mix stuff up. And while, admittedly, whoops, kind of fell off the ladder. Admittedly, you can make pretty much any build work with skill. I don't think people who want to play a pure mage should have to work so much harder than people who just have weapons. But that's just my take on it. That'd be another thing I think might be cool if you guys could leave in the comments. For my Souls uploads, I'm hoping I'll get a lot more views than I do on Dota, admittedly, because everyone's kind of been asking for the Souls games for a long time. I feel like people are kind of losing interest in this channel because I'm not uploading what they want to see, because I upload what I want to play, and that's unlikely to change. But I actually wanted to play some Demon Souls, so I'm hoping that we can have the best of both worlds here, and I'll actually get some quote-unquote subscriber/viewer engagement. So if you guys could leave some comments about your thoughts on Demon Souls versus Dark Souls, or, give me your thoughts about how you like to see magic handled. I think that would be cool. If you guys want to give me some hints about what can improve this series. And the only comment that would be useless to me is don't say talk more about the gameplay, because that will definitely happen on future installments. It's just right now we're in the introductory phases where I'm just sort of linear progressing through levels, hacking through enemies, getting gear. And this game is sort of too aged for me to give a walkthrough on, here's how you build a new character. I think stuff like that's already available on YouTube and on the wikis. Although that's something the community would be interested in, if someone sort of approaches me and asks me to do a how to gear, get a new character going on Demon Souls, I'd be happy to do so. But that would be like sort of a by request thing, because I'm not sure if there'd be a lot of value in it. Someone would have to sell the idea to me, is what I'm saying. I know I have the knowledge base to make it happen, though. So we're about 45 minutes into the video. Plenty of time, plenty of time. That's another thing that's nice about these Let's Plays, is you get a big window to talk until you're going hoarse because you talk so long. Like a 45-minute monologue. And if you've made it this far, you're either liking the content or you're interested in this channel. So this would be a good juncture to ask a couple questions about this channel. So I've already been working on some new thumbnails, and I'm admittedly a pretty poor graphics artist, but I've been putting together some thumbnails and some branding and stuff like that to put on these uploads, and I think that's pretty cool. Things to mark what I'm doing. So, I'd like to make a new Dota thumbnail. I'd like to make a Demon Souls thumbnail for these Demon Souls uploads. stuff like that. And as I work on that, I'd like to hear feedback. Most of those go up on the Facebook page, which you can follow if you want to sort of get the insider scoop on the channel. Admittedly, the Facebook doesn't get a lot of updates, but it is where I wind up posting pretty much all my quote-unquote like insider information on this channel. I've got a new intro going designed by my old friend Flesh, very close friend of mine. You know, admittedly it's not super intense, but I like to keep my channel simple. You know, simple intro. The reason I stopped using the old intro was basically because I wanted to change some of my branding a little bit, but also because it used like a 13-second audio clip that was copyrighted, and I was asked by TGN to stop using it. They let it stay on my old videos, but they did ask that I stop using it on my future videos, which is kind of the crappy thing about seeking a sponsorship. It makes copyright claims less likely against you, but there are a lot more rules and a lot less gray areas sometimes. So definitely something to think about if you have a small YouTube channel and you're trying to get a partnership like I did. It's one thing to consider is the freedoms you'll be giving up and the expectations you'll be taking on. Although I highly recommend TGN because they kind of let you do your own thing. Which, if you're a small channel, that's gonna be really important to you. Is either you want one of two things: A, lots of growth; B, your own thing; C, a mix of both. I went into this hoping for C, and I kind of winded up with mostly B. I kind of just want to do my own thing, and the people that enjoy what I do, they send me good feedback, and I guess that's what matters to me. So, some of the things I want on this channel is, what do you guys think of, like, we're about to really leave my comfort zone here. I'm not so much comfortable doing this, but I think it'd be fun to do. Would be, like, what if I did, like, a face cam? Like, when I was doing these commentaries, there was actually a video, like, on my face. You know what I'm saying? Like a webcam. I have a really high-quality webcam that could be recording me, so you guys can see me. I'm elaborate with my hands a lot when I talk, so you guys can see stuff like that. I kind of like being a faceless commentator, though. I think there's actually a lot of secret, like, hidden charm to that. But I could also see the argument for wanting to see me as I talk about it and stuff like that, and see, how charming / awkward I can be, and all the other nuances that go with quote-unquote public speaking to an invisible audience. So, something to think about. Improvements for this, the Demon Souls commentaries. There's going to be at least, this is like I think roughly a 20-part series, maybe more, maybe a little less. It's between 15 and 20 uploads minimum to get through the whole game and all the little side quests I want to show doing. So, definitely things to talk about, things you'd like to hear about. I'm all about hearing about that stuff. Is the 1 hour upload block too long? Do you guys feel like it's just too much to watch in one session? Maybe I should do 30 minutes instead of an hour. I'm not like a 15-minute uploader. I know some of the huge channels on YouTube will do like the Let's Plays with 15-minute uploads and lets them get a crap load of uploads off their playthrough. They get more money that way. I don't make any money off these, so it's no problem for me. I think between 30 minutes and an hour is a good block of time, or maybe just a block of time dedicated into the world. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you'd like to see me sort of splice these up. I usually just try to shoot for an hour, but sometimes I think it might be just better to shoot for, like, completion of a particular objective or task. I don't know. Now, a couple things I want to rage about. This is legitimate rage here, is, oh my lord. Like, some of the things they put in this game, which I think they thought was a good idea, was just moronic. So, like, let's talk about item encumbrance, which is something I just loathe. So in Dark Souls, what you can equip is limited by your endurance. The same thing is true with Demon Souls, which I think is a great system. If you want to carry more weight, level up your endurance. It creates diversity in builds, which is a good idea, but it's not always so simple, if you will. And what I mean by that is, so on, like, Demon Souls, there's a separate tracking system for the weight that's just in your inventory. And believe me, it's crap. So, like, if your endurance is low, which mine was, because I was not able to level it because of a very specific thing, a character development process, which is basically mandatory for a lot of PvP builds that requires you to not level up for a significant length of time, which is a huge bummer, and as a result, I could not level up my endurance, thus my equip weight was always crap. So, if you don't have enough weight to pick up an item, it just says, you can't carry this, it will encumber you, and it drops to the ground. The part about that sucks the most is, if you can't carry it, you lose it. Like, you either have to take it out of the world, or it's just gone. It doesn't stay there once you leave the area. So, you know, I've definitely lost some really rare drops just because I ran out of inventory space. This is not something I closely monitor. And it's just one of those things that doesn't add any element to gameplay. It could have if it was handled differently. Like, I see the appeal to it. So, like, theoretically, if you're playing... Let's talk PvP again. If you're in PvP, it would encourage players not to bring, like, sometimes they do in Dark Souls, like... There's nothing wrong with this, but bring, like, 14 different weapons and have a sort of a crap in their inventory for every situation they have got accustomed to quick swapping to. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've done that, too. I think it's a good strategy. But, you know, you can make this, like, a balancing thing where you can only carry so much of certain things before you use all your weight in your inventory and you don't want to carry anymore. But it doesn't affect PvP, because in PvP, people just go to a sort of a community-decided PvP zone and they sit there and wait to be invaded, or they spam invasion, which is fine. It's a great system. It's just all the inventory system really does is punish players who don't want to level endurance, which is mostly mages, or punish players who don't want to go to stockpile Thomas and drop off their crap all the time. So I just thought the item encumbrance system was very poorly designed, a stupid idea, and just it didn't work out. And the fact that it didn't make it into Dark Souls 2, I think, demonstrates that the designers, they probably agreed with me. So, good idea gone wrong was the item encumbrance system. It basically sucks. So, oh, and here's something I want to do a shout out to the people that wind up watching this video, which I hope is many, because I used to get a lot of views on the Soul stuff. It would be cool if someone like has like pure Moonlight or pure Blade Stones to let me know so I can get the trophies. I've deleted all my old Demon Souls characters because when I logged on, most of them were very poorly designed, and secondly, I couldn't tell where they were and what they had. But when I deleted them, I deleted a lot of my sort of precious stones I'd farmed over the years I used to play this game before I even cared about trophies. Now that I care about trophies, I wish I hadn't deleted all those old stones. Now I have to farm all this stuff, and I don't really like. That's time I could use to upload more content, or time I could do the PvP. Like, it's only so many hours in a day, and everyone can understand that. There's just better ways to use my time than continually running the same enemies over and over for rare drops. Like, you know, there's a reason I stopped playing MMOs, and that's one of them. So, if anyone could help me out, if anyone has like mules ready to go that could spot me a couple stones for getting trophies, that would be cool. I'm not a chicken hawker. I've beaten this game 4 or 5 times. I just never chased the trophies. So I know some players have concerns that, you know, I'm ruining the experience of the game by muling you all these items because you're not getting them yourself. Like, I hear you're coming from, but yeah, that gecko's lost in forever. It's not really relevant for me because I'm not that guy. I'm a Souls fanatic, and I know what's up. You know, you're not breaking the game with me or taking the play. So. Just a thought if anyone can help me out. If not, that's okay too. You know, I'll just keep trying to farm them unless some great community member steps forward and helps me out. One thing about this game, about the old PvP, was this was the onset of the muling services. On the main Demon Souls wiki, there used to be a service where there was a mule that had, you know, 99 of every item with max upgrades, a lot of different upgrade paths and stuff like that. So it's pretty much decked out with everything you would need to do anything on this game. And the premise was, you know, one player would have it, and they would use dupe. There was like dupe methods that used 2 people that were fairly reliable. It would take maybe an hour, hour and a half, if I recall, to dupe all of a mule onto a new character. I don't remember the exact specifics. I never used the service, but I remember reading a lot about it in the archive forum posts. So you could request dupe, like, you know, a mule dupe, and that's what people would do. And the rule was, you know, if you mule dupe someone, you should either, you know, contribute to the site financially, or you should, you know, one rule, golden rule is like, if you get muled, you have to mule 2 other people. Thus, they would grow the PvP community. It was a good system. It made a lot of sense, because if every person you muled agreed to mule 2 more and everyone was as good as their word, typically they ask that you post from the forum who you muled to. There'd be a ton of items going around, everyone would be PvPing and doing stuff like that. So the only downside of muling services was it kind of bred the chicken hawker problem, which, you know, chicken hawk is just a way of saying like a toon that's over leveled, a gimp character. You know, like the Dark Souls +5 elemental weapons, soul hunting like new players and stuff like that is stupid. Well, that happened on this game too, of course. +5 dragon weapons. Dragon was an item that had a set amount of damage and fire damage that was not affected by any stat. So people would just, you know, have dragon weapons early game and go PvP at low levels, which wasn't particularly fun for anybody that wasn't geared for it, so that was definitely a problem. But I guess the argument would be in this game, you know, the old one was taking over everything, and in Dark Souls, what is it? The fire is fading, so just do what you want to do and don't worry about the community. Not a mentality I've ever adopted, but I've seen the argument for it where, like, you know, the fire's fading, / it's just a game, like, there's no time for these rules of etiquette or anything like that, like, just fight the good battle and that's that. But I think what people don't realize is a lot of the fun of the Soul series is there's no leaderboard, there's no level up system for PvP, there's no, like, rare drops you get. It's all for the joy of fighting, quote unquote. So it's kind of like going into Dark Souls and invading people, or Demon Souls for that matter, invading people with like infinite life glitch. I don't quite understand the fun of that. I guess it's kind of the same as like griefing other players, which admittedly sometimes, you know, I think people find some appeal in, and I'm not going to say I've never griefed somebody, but not like that. To just take my time and spend my time having no competition fights, like, no, that's stupid. Especially in a game like Souls, where if you buy it, you should be committed to, you're playing a harder difficulty and you want the challenge. So it's just always shocked me that, you know, low-level PvP builds exist and they go to just hunt new players, and it just shocks me. I mean, it doesn't shock me that people do things like that, and that's very common in all games. It just shocks me that I guess it's so prevalent on the Souls games where, you know, if you're looking to be like a cheesy, easy experience, you're kind of into the wrong game. I guess Griefer takes all types though, right? So, just kind of my thought with the muling services there, and how it worked on this game versus how it worked on the old Souls games. Excuse me, let me take a drink of water. So, we're quickly approaching the end of this commentary, and one thing I want to point out is how magic, like unlocking magic, works, because very few spells in this game are actually available from spell vendors. Only the most primitive of magics can be purchased from either the miracle or magic vendors. Basically, when you kill a boss, you get their soul. Basically, their soul can be used for making a new weapon, learning a new spell, or a new miracle. Most souls can do any of the three, but you only pick one because you consume the soul. So a lot of players dupe the souls. They can do all three for trophies, or just because they don't want to have to wait till New Game Plus to have their character ready to use. I think that's a reasonable decision. I would probably utilize it, but anyway. The last bit I want to talk about is one of the biggest and most annoying factors about leveling on Dark Souls, or I'm sorry, about Demon Souls. It's kind of funny, really. So, a little history. You can actually lose soul levels on Demon Souls. You can be de-leveled. There's two NPC bosses in the game. King Allen, who's pretty much the final boss of the game, effectively, or an NPC that appears in the Nexus eventually, named Mephistopheles, and yeah, she's as evil as she sounds. These people have the ability to soul suck you, as do other players. If you get soul sucked, you lose a stat point. You lose a level and a soul point. So, like, it takes from your lowest stat and then lowers it. So, basically, you could have players reset your soul level if you wanted. There's not a whole lot of reason to do that. Back when Demon Souls first released, I mean, we're talking like new on the shelf, you could actually go negative into stats. So a lot of players would take worthless stats to negative 99, which would let them be soul level 20, because, you know, 120 is the PvP bracket, but they'd be like soul level 20 with an extra 99 stat points. These ridiculously overpowered characters that I believe still exist on some oldie accounts where people still have, you know, a soul level 120 character with 99 extra soul points that they can still invade people with. It's probably not that common anymore since the game is basically passing into oblivion with time, but it's definitely something that was fascinating. But with character design now, since, you know, you're going to have enough, you're going to have roughly 100 MP on almost any build, because Second Chance, as I said, is an absolute must on almost any build, competitive, or PvE, or for that matter. Skipping Second Chance is just a mistake. What players would do is, if you're going to have 100 MP anyway, and there's no requirement on magic, like you don't have to have X into magic to cast a magic spell, you can just cast magic. So you'd want to learn all the spells that you could, because even at 100 MP, sometimes it's nice to be able to cast a particular spell. I mean, like there's all these cloud effects. There's an acid cloud, which wrecks weapons, death cloud, which gives it the plague status effect, and poison cloud, respectively, which gives the poison status effect. There's soul arrow, which is a fast-moving, high-damage magic projectile. Soul arrow, which is great about knocking down regular monsters. So obviously there's a whole lot of different magics, but they're all taught by Sage Frake, I think it actually is, Sage Frake or his apprentice, and they won't teach you magic unless you have 10 magic, which I think was a design choice by the developers, which I can respect. I mean, it's, you know, certain characters start with that much. A Temple Knight, which is what I'm playing, starts with 6, so I'd have to skill it 4 times. So what makes that interesting is I don't really benefit from that stat at all. It's just a requirement for me to have magic. So all in all, probably not a bad system. You know, go ahead and put a little requirement on the magic so people have to put something in to get something out of it. But it turns out it doesn't work that way, because like I said, you can soul suck. So what people would do is, including me, is we get magic of 10, we buy all the spells in the game and draw up all the demon souls for all the magics, and then we go de-level ourselves. All you have to do to make that work is don't level up anything, because on a Temple Knight, magic is your lowest starting stat. Thus, when you get soul sucked, it will always level if you've only raised it. So the exception to this is you actually can raise vitality, because even when you get soul sucked, you never lose vitality. So just something to think about. It became oddly kind of a huge hindrance. And one thing that separates this from Dark Souls from Demon Souls is I actually am going to narrate and talk during the boss fights. Armor Spider is the boss of 1-1, 2-1 rather. Pretty easy boss. Harder for melee than it is for ranged. And I like to bow it down, because if you go behind this little crack here, almost all of its attacks will miss and never hit you, which just kind of lets you pelt it with arrows to death. And considering the style of the Soul series and some of the stuff that happens to me on this game, the bosses do to me versus what I do to them, I don't really feel bad about utilizing little tricks like this. I think this is reasonable. Of course, you can't run up there and melee the spider to death, or you can stand up in the middle and play cat and mouse with arrows versus shoot an arrow, dodge some fireballs. This is just quicker and more efficient. And, in these playthroughs, I'm not trying to impress anyone. I want to do the most efficient way. This is easily one of the most efficient ways to kill the armor spider, unless you're over-prepared. You can run up in one shot with great spells and stuff. So, definitely some stuff to think about. Knocking out this boss early can get you access to the lava bow. The lava bow is a phenomenal weapon for me. Basically, it's a bow that you don't have to have dexterity to do good damage with. And since only very specific builds have high dexterity, basically sharp builds, you can actually have a bow that does a lot of damage with bosses and enemies just by getting that bow. So if you have the dexterity for it, which you may not, there actually is a fairly steep, just base dexterity requirement, it can be a great investment. My character will not have the dex. I'm leaving my dex at base, which is 12. 14 strength, 12 dex is base on a Temple Knight. So that's something to think about. But to wrap up where I was going with my annoyances, the match requirement didn't actually work out, because players would just only level their vitality, which even if they got soul sucked, would never go down. Thus, players would take magic to 10, buy all the magic they wanted, swap the souls, do their thing, and then they would just get a de-leveled by using the NPCs on the player. And it just turned out to be just a big inconvenience. Especially now, because the easiest way to de-level is actually, if you invade somebody else's world, then you die or leave their world. If you don't kill the host of the world, you automatically lose a soul level. So basically, people would just take magic to 10, buy other spells, invade 4 worlds, and just stone out or get killed or jump off a cliff, and their magic would go back down to 6. So all it did was just serve as a big inconvenience to players. It didn't actually stop anybody from properly building their characters or from cheesing that requirement. And so it just kind of became de facto to get the best soul level 125 character you could if you wanted magic, but you didn't really want to level magic because you weren't going to actually use the spells beyond utility. Basically, if all you were using was utility magic, which was most builds, that would be how you approach it. You just cheese your way around the in-game requirement, and you'd be good to go. And so that's why I spend a lot of this playthrough never leveling, is for that reason. As being a bit of a perfectionist, I wanted this character to have all the spells, not just the utility ones. So I actually had to kill almost every boss in the game before I could level anything but vitality. So kind of a letdown. It was kind of, since the servers are dying, it was also very hard for me to de-level this character because I couldn't actually find anybody to invade, or very few players. So even lowering my stats by 4 points took me an hour and a half of trying to find worlds to invade. And part of it's just I don't know the soul level brackets, and I don't know where I need to go to find low level players. But I tried all the worlds a couple times, and very rarely to actually get an invasion on. So it was a problem. I asked for help on some forums, and no one really came forward. And eventually, I just made it all the way to the last boss of the game, King Allen, and I let him use his soul suck skill on me, which you guys will see later. The Allen fight is, of course, in these uploads, and that'll be one of the last things I upload because it's the end of the game. So, just some inconveniences, things like that, are what kind of made me put off Demon Souls as a game and kind of made me reflect negatively on the game. Is just the tremendous amount of lack of polish and design choice, where a lot of things were done that basically only inconvenience the players. They don't actually add to the difficulty. Making someone work harder isn't really making something a more challenging experience. Like, de-leveling magic takes no skill. It just takes knowledge and patience, which is a lot different than, say, fighting a boss, which takes patience, knowledge, and actual skill to execute. So I don't like my games to feel like jobs. I don't like grinding very much. I've liked grinding less and less with time. Now, admittedly, I have love for the old school RPGs, like the old Final Fantasies and stuff, where certain ones of the grinding actually is a pretty important thing. That aside, it just does not belong in a Soul series, and things like that, like having to de-level to get magic, or having to farm greens, world tendency, all these little inconveniences, item encumbrance, they really take a lot away from this experience if you let them get to you. And admittedly, I used to let them get to me. Since this latest playthrough, by and large, they haven't gotten to me. It hasn't taken away from the experience, so I recommend when you play this Soul game now, don't worry so much about optimization. In retrospect, I don't know why I was so dead set on even bothering to de-level my magic, because I won't be PvPing that much anyway. I probably could have just taken 4 points off vitality and had 46 vitality instead of 50. Almost an unnoticeable difference, but when you have a perfectionist nature, sometimes it can just force you to do things that aren't particularly practical. But with that scene of the boss of 2-1, my character is now reasonably well geared to take on the feats early game. And since I can't level my character to meet new requirements or level my stats to increase the damage on things, or meet the requirements for certain magics, basically I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time with this loadout until I get much later and I manage to gear up with dragon weaponry and dragon Murden hammer. And I'm really looking for this series. I really would like to my subscribers and viewers to see the difference in how the worlds look this game versus like Dark Souls, because there's a big difference in the way the world's presented. And for everyone that thought Blighttown sucked, Valley of Defilement is just way worse in my opinion. I mean, I think Blighttown, while complete pain and miserable to go through, is doable, whereas Valley of Defilement I just think is all around essentially a miserable experience. Obviously Dark Souls, Blighttown, and Valley of Defilement, which you'll see in these uploads later on in the series, have a huge amount of similarity. They're inspired by the other. It's just that the part that frankly just kills me, and I mean that's the word that just kills me, is the fact that the swamp in Dark Souls was not popular. I mean, how could it be? I mean, of course, Blighttown is also lagtastic, but the swamp, is hard to walk through, spawning enemies, just a complete pain. Treacherous, walking over tree limbs and stuff like that when it's not a precision control game. Just poor and awkward design choices like that. Well, Demon Souls has all of that, as you'll see. The biggest difference is it doesn't lag, which is fantastic, except the swamp is huge and more time-consuming, and you fight enemies that are basically designed in such a way that you should have to roll against them, and you can't roll in the swamp. So that's something I look forward to raging through in my commentary. But we've reached the end now, and I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Please leave a like and a comment. I'll see everyone next time.